2. And hello, you guys. We are live. RealDence Nay here. Happy Black History Month.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. All this month is a celebration of this melanin. I have to keep it real with you guys. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so. RealDence Nay. We have a very special guest. In fact, he is definitely a living legend. And people, real ones, let me just do a little thing. I just gotta do me real quick. You guys, when you have people that have passed on and you give them these labels as, oh, this person is this and this person is that. I love Black history, but I believe history also is current events. Within our lifetimes, we've seen a lot of changes. And we have someone today still here to be able to give us those stories. He is our living legend. Okay, Curry. Let's have it.
All right. Thank you. I'm just waiting on this. You had me mesmerized there for a moment, so I was just trying to take it all in, being this, living legend. And I want to thank you for inviting me on YouTube to tell my story, because I think that's very important. Where that we look at people who are telling stories. Telling their stories of their livelihood or their lives based on someone that you might see as a public official or a celebrity or a superstar. But what about the ones who are actually making a difference where the rubber meets the road? And I think that's where sometimes we forget about the sanitation worker. We forget about the police officer. We ain't forgetting about the police officers now, because we got a lot going on with that. We forget about the military until it's Veterans Day, Memorial Day. But those people who come out each and every day, your first responders, your people who are your teachers and things of that nature, who cannot sit back and not be a part of making history by making things run. So I really appreciate it, and I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come on and just tell my story.
Thank you for coming, and when you are here, you are home.
Thank you.
Definitely feel welcome. Kick back if you want to. You can even kick off one of your shoes.
Well, I'm gonna kick back as time goes on. I want the people to really understand, everybody has a different journey, and how they take on that journey is how they form their lives. And some have good, not so good journeys, and some people make the best of the situation that they have, because they might not have came from a affluent family or being in a neighborhood that, the one thing that I can say is I was born in Jackson, Tennessee, a small place between Memphis and Nashville, and I think one person that everybody know that comes from one of the areas I come from was Too Tall Jones, a football player for the Cowboys. But I, made it a conscious decision as I was growing up, being raised by my grandmother during the period of time, to say, what do I want? What do I want to do? And one thing that I wanted to do was travel. That was the thing that I wanted to do, because I had several uncles that were in the military. Our family was very religious. We had a lot of pastors in the family. And I just wanted to travel. And so, playing a little football growing up, playing a little basketball, going to college, and then when I got to college, I was like, man, I got to go to this thing for 4 years. And I just got out of high school, and I was like, well, and I was in the Upward Bound program, which was a very good program for, you know, you coming through school. And I said, well, let me try something different, you know. And I said, let me try the military, you know. And I said, so I joined the Army, and I told them my first duty assignment, it was, I want to go overseas. I want to go overseas. And I was overseas for 9 years, you know, 7 years on active duty and 2 years as a contractor working for a German company. So
wow.
So
the
yeah.
German company.
Say
Wow,
again?
you were in the military.
Yes.
You were in the military, but contracted with a German company?
Yeah, well, I actually got out and went in the reserves, and I worked as a technician for a German company for probably 2 years before coming back to the States around the Olympic time frame. And that's when they had some recruiters coming over from Atlanta looking for law enforcement in the States. And I applied, and I came back, took the test, and then I got hired on with Atlanta Police Department in '96. So, you know, and it was, you know, I coming from the military and transitioning, coming from the military, during that period of time, I was in Desert Storm, and I was like, okay, what do I want to do after Desert Storm? And then they sent me to Fort Gordon, and then I made the decision to get out, and then I went to Europe and worked over there for 2 years, and then I came back and worked for, you know, the ACOG, and they got hired on with the city. So it's been a tremendous time. I did 7 years on active duty and 20 years in the reserves. And during that period of time, I did 21 years as a City of Atlanta Police Department, worked with the City of Atlanta Police Department, where I was a detective for 2 years. I mean, for 21 years. And I enjoyed every moment of it. And it had its good times and it has its bad times, but I made the best of it.
You talk when you're in the police department, I'm sure you've seen a heavy amount of controversial incidents.
Yes, and I think what, you know, I'm part of an organization. Once retiring, I'm part of an organization called Clippers and Cops, where we started. The founder is Tyrone Dence, and we and some other law enforcement colleagues and some people who work into. We have a news correspondent. We have a radio host that are part of our team as well, that help us get the word out and try to bridge that gap between law enforcement and the community more than ever. And I think what departments have to go back to is the old way of community policing. I think when I first came on as a police officer, we was doing community policing, but, you know, with the manpower and people choosing other professions than law enforcement, it kind of put a, it was more of an enforcement than a reaction, than sometimes being proactive.
Okay. You see the difference in that now versus when you were a active police officer?
Well, I recently retired in 2017 from Atlanta Police Department, so it's not that long, but it's long enough. And I still go back because I'm an instructor, a master instructor, so I go back and still teach recruits. I still teach some of the police officers as well as command staff as well. So it's a privilege to be able to do that and be able to give back once retired, you know. And so that's what I try to do, is give back to the community in retirement by going back and teaching recruits. And I think now more than ever, we need to be more transparent in the law enforcement arena and trying to make things a lot better than what they actually are. You know, I watch a lot of things on TV that if police officers had some type of sympathy or empathy when they dealing with people, and these are citizens. These are people who could be someone's mother, father, sister, brother, uncle, dad, that if they take the time out to maybe listen and find out. Now, there's some situations where people are guilty and the evidence is there. But when you start trying to figure things out, and one thing I, didn't want to ever do is be in a position where I sent somebody to jail that shouldn't have been in jail. And sometimes it's kind of hard to figure that out.
Wow. So, in your opinion, would you say the times as far as officers currently versus 2017, even though you're a instructor, do you find yourself having to redo the way that you train the officers that you are instructing?
I think all the time there will be different changes in departments, departmental policies, departmental procedures, based on the climate and based on the demand of the public. The public drives that change. Police officers don't make the law. Okay, we enforce the law. And sometimes people think that we make the laws. No, we don't. The politicians make the law based off of the public's decision on that. And I think where the people need to really know that the power that they have when they, have strong feelings. And there's a lot of laws on the books that should have been taken off the books years ago, but they're still on those books. And until people start, fighting against those or standing up and demonstrating and requesting these things to change. But you can demonstrate, you can protest all you want, but if you're not changing those laws, those are the key things that runs that train, the laws. And so you have to look at that. And so, most people have to look at a law book, and know some of the laws that's there. And sometimes as law enforcement officers, we only pick and choose certain ones. And so why wouldn't you really understand that? And that's one of the procedures that you have to do as a law enforcement officer is know your state, federal, and local city ordinances in order to do your job.
Wow. Whew. Well, I know they probably wish you can be a carbon copy, so that maybe that they won't have so many instances as we see on the national syndicate.
And I think what a lot of places departments need to do is look at reality-based training. And that's what we do. What we were doing at Atlanta Police Department was a lot of reality-based training. And the reality-based training takes time because you have to have these different scenarios and play different skits. But it makes you look at how an officer or a recruit reacts to a certain situation. Everybody's not going to react to a situation the same. Some might be a little bit, have more empathy than another. But what you want to get to at the middle of it is the fairness. Were you fair on how you made that decision? And sometimes that can get messed up a little bit.
I would think so. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would definitely agree.
Because there's certain things that I see that I think an officer should go to jail for. But for some apparent reason, the grand jury and the DA did not feel that that was the right thing to do. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. Police officers know when they're wrong. It ain't just like as a citizen, you do something wrong. You knew you were speeding. You knew you were speeding. You just taking your chances. And when you get caught, you was like, it's better if you say, yes, I was speeding. Because it could change the moment. It's like, no, I'm not speeding. And he was like, you were speeding. And so it's just the best way to say, yeah, I was speeding because I was on my way to work, or, I got to get home to get the kids and stuff like that. It's one of those things that you have. And some people think, we're there to write tickets and lock people up. No, we're not. We're there to do the law based off what's been said by the government.
So I have to ask this question. Have you personally ever experienced discrimination acts from one of your superiors due to anything that you feel as though, okay, man, that's not right?
Yeah, I'm trying to really think about it. A lot of it is hidden. It comes out in certain ways that you'll be like, well, why are we charging this person with that? Or same way in the military is like, why are we giving this person UCMJ action when we just had somebody do the same thing, and based on sometimes the color of their skin, they receive a harsher punishment. And I don't sometimes think that is fair. And I think that's one thing that we definitely have to look at. And we're looking at it more now than ever because it's, everybody's got cell phones. So, everybody drop their cell phone and they'll pick it up in a minute and videotape. And one thing that I'll say, and I'll admit this, you can videotape me anytime you want when I was a police officer because I knew I was doing the right thing. So as long as you do it safely, don't interfere in the scene and get in the way, then that's okay. I don't mind you videotape. Just make sure you're not, causing any problems in the way of making sure that I'm doing my investigation or handling a crime scene. And I wouldn't be watching, I wouldn't recommend you to be with your cell phone out when people are shooting at each other. No, that wouldn't be the smart thing to do. Take cover. But, you have people just, want to make want to take their story and sell it and get things of that nature. And I understand that, but just be safe when you do it. And have I dealt with that? Yes. Yes, I've dealt with it in the department. But I think if you confront it when it happens, they will sometimes be like, oh, wait a minute, I might not have said it that way. Let me see how I can come away with this another way. So if you allow them to continue to do it, they will do it not only you, to somebody else. So you have to kind of fact check them. But one thing about Atlanta Police Department that most departments don't have is we have a lot of diversification. We have a lot of different people in the Atlanta Police Department. It's a big melting pot. So it's not where you're going to be one-sided. It is the community that it represents. And that's where a lot of departments struggle at and we as people of color sometimes don't want to be law enforcement officers or police officers, or public servants. So, how can you check somebody when nobody sits there that looks like you? And when you sit there and you look like a person and you have to be that person who's like saying, okay, when you look around you and you say, I'm the only person of color on this panel, on this board. Why is that? I know there's more duly qualified people that can hold this position, but why is that? And that should be a question that one lonely person sitting there should be asking.
Right.
And that's a key question that most people don't. And I think opportunities are given in some departments far more than they are in others.
Wow. It's amazing. That is amazing. So it's emotional at the same time, but yet it's reality. So
yeah, this is reality. Ooh. But to go on a I know we talked about law enforcement. I know we kind of talked about the military, but I also want to talk about how we dealing with this elephant in the room called this pandemic. I'm one that's been a person who loved to travel. I've always traveled, and it kind of I've been to Tahiti, Africa, Australia, Japan, and cruising and a whole bunch of other stuff that I've, been able to do after retiring. And just to have it being isolated is, I actually took my first trip just a couple of days ago and flew to Vegas and just had a moment to reflect and see how that was, and then went to Phoenix, saw Phoenix where it's quiet. Wasn't that many people. I was downtown Phoenix on a Saturday and there was nobody downtown. It was like a ghost town. It was just me videotaping by myself. I saw a few homeless people.
Wow.
More, I was downtown Phoenix and there was nobody there. I was like, okay. But it's a lot going on right now, and I'm just trying to figure that out. I had a travel business that I was working. It was internet based, and I was booking travel for people, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and we don't know when that's going to start back up. You got the vaccine, you got all these requirements now that's going to take place, so it's just trying to figure that out and enjoying. And so how everybody's handling their mental health do all of this. I no gyms open, because that was my biggest thing. If you ever saw me on Instagram or Facebook, I'm always in the gym. I was, still up early in the morning, going to the gym at 6 o'clock, where most people saying, you retired, why you still getting up going to the gym at 6 o'clock? Why don't you go to the gym at 2 o'clock? But I want to get it out the way and start my day with whatever I had going on. So that was very important to me. And being able to, I think a lot of programs out there that helped me out, to get me where I was coming out of the military and dealing with, some moments of depression. You can say, you can see more people you say this person got money and things, but why are they depressed? It's a lot of things that comes along with that word depression, and most people don't want to really talk about it. But now you being isolated and being put in different situations, what is your out? That's why I ask people, what are they out? What out do they have? And so mine is cycling. I'll cycle, 30, 40 to 100 miles in a day. And most people's like, well, I'm not going to cycle 30, 40 miles in a day. Well, if you do 10, that's better than doing none, or walk 2 miles or a mile or half a mile every day, just to get your blood flowing and circulating and doing some things that you need, or spinning. I'll watch a TV series or a series on TV, and I'll binge watch, and I'll be cycling, spinning for 4 hours, and I'm getting a workout while I'm watching this program. So I think that is key to everyone.
Yeah. Now that's a good idea. To be sitting still and be able to do that as well, but they're exercising with the cycle.
Yeah, or some people have elliptic, or they get on the treadmill or whatever you can, or listen to jazz or your favorite radio show while walking. There's plenty of audiobooks out there. So, just I try to tell people to find things that they want to do. And so that's what I do. Well, just to get off the serious note, because everybody, everything is, first of all, we were so serious about, law enforcement, policing, and all this other stuff. And there's a lot of stuff going on both sides of it, being in the military and being in law enforcement. And the same thing with them. How do they, de-stress? How do people in the medical field de-stressing? Because now they're the ones that's working 12-hour shifts and getting, and then they got to come home. And some of them can't really enjoy their families because they have to quarantine themselves when they get home, if they have enough space. So, it's a lot. So, but I really appreciate you taking the time out to, and invite me on. And what I try to do is, share my knowledge as much as I can, because once we leave here, that knowledge goes away. And what can you do with that besides, leaving that legacy? And then if you still leave that legacy for your, great grandkids or grandkids or someone else, how do you make sure that they know what they're doing with it? Because so many people are given things and they don't respect it. They don't value it. So, we just need to go back and look at things that we actually value.
So I do have probably 3 more questions I would love to ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you able to touch on your time when you had the interview with CNN?
Oh yeah, that was when I was in Desert Storm. Yeah, I think I was the first sergeant when I had the interview, but they was talking about Desert Storm, and they actually came to my reserve unit and they talked to me about how now it was a 10-year anniversary for that, and so I kind of discussed it based on what I had dealt with when I was there as a service member, not really knowing if I was a corporal at the time, and I was with 2nd ACR, and I think that was one of the things that I was a signal person put in a cab unit, and I was like, okay, now I'm almost at the front lines trying to figure out, with mortar attacks and all these other things that's going on, am I going to survive? And sadly to say, a couple of my colleagues didn't make it back, including one that I was, it was a supply specialist that I knew, that everybody knew, the supply person. He ended up getting by a mortar, dying from succumbing to the injuries from that. And so and I was a combat lifesaver at the time. And I tried to do everything possible to save his life along with the other medics that were there. And I think that stuck with me for a long time. Most people don't know that story because it's one thing that you have to look at somebody. We know that when we go, somebody might not make it back, and that person might just be you. And we don't think about it when we're there. We know it's there, but we don't think about it. And when it happens, it's going to happen. And so, and they kind of touched on that, and they asked me a couple of questions about that. And so, still, it's one of those things, because I've been back there after, 9/11, going back to, Iraq, and being in Kuwait after the changes. So, and then my last assignment was in Afghanistan. And so, and that's a landlocked place right there. And that's a whole different beast, being in Afghanistan. I don't wish that on my work in Afghanistan, but, duty calls, and, they said, that's where we need you to serve. And, we served, and it was, I was glad to make it back safe, because like I said, a lot of colleagues did not make it back, and a lot of them have visible and non-visible scars. So it's a price to pay when you go to combat.
Wow.
And most veterans won't talk about it unless they talk about it in a group setting, like certain places like the vet centers and things like that, where they go and they do group settings or individual counseling that they get from the VA. And some of them get from other agencies that will help, counsel veterans and how they coping. And I think now a lot of that is they're looking at the families as well, because we bring a lot of that back home, and sometimes we cannot cope with it, and it affects our families, including our kids as well.
I tell you, that it's emotional. You hear about it, but to actually have been through what you were telling us, that's a whole different feeling. It has to be.
Yeah, and when you have kids and grandkids and things like that, and then some grandkids and kids are really scared of their service member who come back, because they are trying to digress from some of the things that they've seen, and sometimes it's not as pleasant as most people think. And we have to deal with that, veterans, sometimes on the law enforcement side as well. And so, based on you having someone who has military training, and is also in coming in contact with law enforcement. So sometimes that is not always as easy as people think it is, because, you know, that can be a conflict. So it's a lot.
Wow.
You know, a lot of it don't make the news.
Exactly. And that was another one of the reasons why I asked you to come to my channel and disclose this information like you are, and I want to thank you for being transparent and being honest as well, and not sugarcoating it, because you have definitely walked the walk. And for you to have been on CNN, you didn't even probably realize it, but that was a historic moment right then and there. And I know you probably didn't realize it as such, because when you're at the moment and you're at that time, you're not thinking of, oh, wow, I'm about to make history. It doesn't work like that, you know, but that's what it was.
Yeah, and you know, that's, you know, and you never know how your story can help somebody out of theirs, because, you know, we have to, in law enforcement as well as being in the military, we put on this shield. We have to react to things that most people don't want to react to. And, you know, someone had made a comment on something saying, well, you know, being a police officer is a thankless job. No, it's not. It's a lot of responsibility comes with that. And we can definitely see the responsibility that comes with it if you make the wrong decision. Because we have, in a lot of departments, including the Atlanta Police Department, law enforcement officers have made wrong decisions. But a lot of times you cannot jump to judgment based on the situation, because the media plays a key into this. They only show you a snippet of the whole story. And you take that little bit and you run with it without seeing that whole story. It's sometimes hard to go back when you said this person did this before it got to that, which led to this. And so you look at it, and you know, we can all make decisions on things. And I was blessed to be able to go through the Atlanta Police Department for 21 years, not have to fire my weapon besides at the range. Now, not saying that there were no close calls. Now, it was some close calls where I had to, you know, make some decisions, but it did not lead to me pulling the trigger on my weapon.
Ooh. I can imagine that did help you with your self-being, not having to take someone's son or daughter, aunt, uncle away. You know, I know that has to feel great. And
yeah, but some officers are not.
Yeah, shouting
Yeah,
you
some
on
officers
either.
are not having, you know, didn't have that opportunity to have that grace, because I know some of them that have had to take someone's life to protect another person's life or their own life. And you know, that is a decision that, you know, we all take on as law enforcement officers. But, you know, I've seen some that did not have to go that route, but they made that decision. And so now it's time for, you know, to look at it and see if they were justifiable. And I think one thing that the Atlanta Police Department did, and a lot of other agencies are doing, is having other agencies review and investigate their officer-involved shootings. So that takes it off of the department and put in has, well, like Atlanta has the GBI to investigate their police officer shootings. So it takes the findings from the police department and it puts it on the GBI, and they would do their investigation and come out with their findings.
Oh, well, that's a good thing. So I would like to ask you, you know, the time that you were on BET, you have to tell us about that. When you were on BET, what was that about?
We was on BET with the organizations Clippers and Cops at a barbershop on Cleveland Avenue, talking about how bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community, and talking about tough subjects that was taken on, some of them as we were speaking, and trying to see what, we had law enforcement officers there, black and white, talking to people in a predominantly black community at a barbershop about how they have encountered law enforcement being people of color. And I think that voices need to be heard because, people have been, racially profiled for years. I know that, as a young teenager, my father had a Corvette and I got stopped several times just because of the car. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I got stopped. But I was taught how to respond to law enforcement. And I think that helps me out. But I don't think a lot of people that are not of color even discuss that. We discuss it because it's prevalent in our community that we see. Everybody in the community that might work hard and drive a nice car does not have to associate themselves with a drug dealer or being a person who is doing something illegal. So you have to have that justifiable cause to make that stop, not just because I got a hunch or I feel like it. No, you got to have a reason to do that. And, as being a black police officer, my hairs always go up when I get pulled over or stopped, and just trying to figure out what I got stopped for or what was the apparent reason of that. So, we have to look at that as America. And I think, I can keep it real because black people or people of color look at law enforcement totally different because of history. Let's keep it real. We was not on the side of law enforcement during history. We were the ones who they saying they were protecting as property, and we were the ones who had to fall in line to the laws that were unjust. And even though that, you have Constitution and everything else, we were not created, or we were not, how can I say it? We were not viewed as, people with the same rights as someone of non-color or a white person. Just keep it real. And I think now we're definitely seeing it far more than ever. It can't be sugarcoated, and they try to be sugarcoated, and things that you have seen in the media. And I just, I'll keep it real. It's what we saw with the Black Lives Matter movement versus the movement that took place on the Capitol would not happen in Black Lives Matter situation. And so how do we look as Americans? We all Americans. You need to look in the mirror and see and say to yourself, okay, what did I just see? Did I see privilege? Yes, you did. Because if it was me, a person of color, doing that same thing, I might not be here to tell the story. And so for that to take place, we as America need to really look at ourselves. And I don't care what color you are, you need to look at yourself and say, was that duly justifiable? And stop playing politics with people's lives. I think that's where we need to really look at it and just be really real with it. If I am a human being just like you are, I deserve the same rights, the same respect, the same as anybody else. But we're not afforded that all the time because the color of our skin. Just keeping it real.
That's right. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Those things, those experiences, that's what make you a living legend.
Thank you.
You've seen where the past has come into the present and what's affecting us now. That makes you historic because you've seen it. And it's nothing like hearing from the person that's actually been in those predicaments. So that way you can get exactly what you said, the truth.
Yeah, you can see it on you know, the one thing that I always say to people, and when you look at it, is I don't have the opportunity to change the color of my skin. This way I was born. And
Right.
just given the opportunity, because there have been a lot of brilliant people who have been, their careers have been destroyed, their livelihoods have been taken away because they were, they spoke out. They were people who knew that should have been equal. Some white people died for us too. So let's not get the twisted. We had that situation that go on as well during the civil rights movement and during the Civil War. You had a lot of us that served in the Civil War. And you had a lot of us who served in different other wars. When we came back to the States, we could not even wear our uniforms. Come on now, let's keep it. And because the reason why I know that is because my grandmother had to tell my uncle, who was a Vietnam veteran,
Wow.
no, Korean veteran, about that. When he came home and said, look, I'm not comfortable in you wearing your uniform in some parts of Tennessee. So you had to take that just not only in Tennessee, but in the South in itself, because somebody felt like that based on you wore that uniform and they didn't have the opportunity to go in, you disrespected them. So that is something that history, you can't hide it. It's there. It's in the books. But if you don't share that light on it, sometime it will go dormant. And that's just where I am, because I'm a Black police officer. And when I get out of uniform, I'm a Black person. And so I have to not only think of that for myself, but I got to think of that stuff for my wife, my family, my friends, my grandkids, because I think what we have seen now is our kids and grandkids, their racism and bigotry and what you call it is taught, because they don't learn it. When a kid is, they just want to play. When a kid come out, he just want to play. He don't care who, just somebody to play with him. He didn't care what color he or she is. They just want to play, you know. Right. But we put stipulations and things on them to say, no, you can't play with him because this or that. And they just want to play. So, you know, I think I appreciate you for bringing me on and having me talk, because, you know, I have colleagues of mine that are still out there that's working hard for the city and for the county and the government. And, you know, they're, you know, in law enforcement, they're in public safety, they're in the medical fields, they're teachers, you know, out there, and sanitation workers that's out there doing their jobs while all this is going on, and making it safe for us as much as possible. So I just want to give a shout out to the ones who still out there, you know, serving and protecting and making this country, what we call America, equal for everybody, just not for certain, you know, people.
Yes, there you go. There you go. I just love this. This has been an awesome journey for me, and I do appreciate it. And I'm pretty sure my real ones appreciate it. I say real ones, that's my audience. And because we keep it real, and I'm real. Yeah.
We want to keep it real, and I think that's it. You know, when you have, you know, people are playing right now with words. I say that we play with words a lot, and sometimes we just need to step away from playing for words and come from the heart and figure out what can make things better. And you're going to always have people trying to get over on the system. You're going to have people who are always trying to do this and do that. You're going to always have that. But most generally, you're going to have things that's very important. And I think until we start looking at the infrastructure here in America, and because we have more and more people coming here, more and more things going up, but you definitely have to look at that infrastructure. And I think that's one thing that we definitely need to focus on, as well as foreign stuff. But I think we just need to look at how we can make America a place that we all can say is home, and don't feel, bad about being an American.
I was born here, so I know I can't feel bad.
Yeah, I know, I know,
Hey,
I know, I know. I being born here, but I tell people, I said, being born here, and then when I actually went to Tanzania and Zanzibar, and um, actually going to part of history where the slave trade. That's where some began, of the
mm,
passage of bringing people of color to the United States. Some all came as slaves. Now we have to understand, some was merchants, some were other things, but the majority did. And that was one of the passageways. And, just to go back there and to do that, and be there, and actually go to Egypt and see how those pyramids are. I still was trying to figure out how they made those pyramids, but that's just in itself the wonders of it. And I think the one thing we all have to do is obtain knowledge. And don't be afraid of a book. Don't be afraid
hey,
of, being a little different and finding your way, because the ones that find their way is sometimes the geniuses that we need to find a cure for, a terminal illness or things of that nature. So we have those out there. We just need to spend time to embrace them and get them to, to the right place.
yes, this has been an awesome thing. Oh wow, I thank you so very much. I don't want to keep you. And is there anything you would like to tell the audience?
Well, I want to tell all, as I say, well, thank you. We all have people out there who are living legends that you can see each and every day. And we don't have to look at a television or a video to find that. You can find that in maybe your sister, brother, mother, father, uncle, or grandparents, that they have made a difference somewhat in your life, and you took advantage of certain things to get you to a better place. So let's do our part in making things better, and helping each other out, because if you help other people out, that's very important. And so that's why I'm dealing with things with other organizations and being a part of it. And I was a member of Leadership Douglas here in Douglas County, and it helped me understand what was going on in Douglas County, where I live here in Georgia, and just having other little avenues of things that's out there. So just find your niche and do it well, and don't think somebody will be there to help you if you need it. Ask for it, because you never know where your help will come from.
Oh, that is true. That is true. I found that out the other day, as a matter of fact, and I was like, "What?" It is sad. It's sad, but it's true when people know they have the right intentions and the right drive, and then they're constantly reaching out, and sometimes not to have somebody to reach back. It does affect that person as well, and it can sometimes allow that person to be torn down. But I've never been the type of person to give up. I
Yeah.
tell the more you try to tear me down, the stronger I'm gonna come. So
And that's some people, and I appreciate you taking the time out to and say, hey, I want you to be on and just share your story, because there's a lot of other people with stories, and some of them are very good stories, and some stories are lessons learned by people that we had dealt with. And so that's very important, and I thank you. And we just need to look at ways that we can give back, and this is one platform, is having people who are just out here that's making a difference that you don't know that, hey, that person is a brain surgeon, but you just don't know that. You just until you actually talk to that person and he said, yeah, I'm the lead surgeon at Emory. And you're like, what? Wait. You don't, but what does that look like? Because you never know what that person looks like.
Exactly. Right, without the uniform on. Because we wouldn't have never just looking at you. Of course, like, oh, that man, excuse me, he's been a police officer before. Oh, he's been in the military before. Oh, he's into cycling. Oh, he's into wait a minute, what? You can't just look at a person and see that. And that's another reason, like, you see yourself, if someone was to walk past you dressed as you are now and you're looking as comfortable, you become what they call an everyday person per se, not knowing the history you have.
Yeah, and that's common that you have a lot of everyday people who walk around and and you don't know. There's a lot of millionaires or people who have money that walks around that you don't know. They don't drive fancy cars. They live their lives under that radar, and we don't know that. And a lot of them are people of color. I live in Metro Atlanta, and you have a lot of prominent people here in Metro Atlanta, and that are doing well. And you have them all over, and you never know who you dealing with when you're out there. You wouldn't know I was a police officer when you pulled me over, until maybe you start talking to me, and I'm not going to lead on to it. You should treat me just like a regular citizen and doing the best you can based off the situation while you stop me. So I just want everybody to know that's one thing that we want to be out here to letting people know that there are a lot of good police officers out here, but you don't hear about them. The media portrays the ones that are not doing the right things or that are in some type of controversial situation. So I think there should be more talk shows and more things of police officers and firefighters and nurses and teachers that's doing a good job out here to, make, educate our kids, protect and serve, protect property like the firemen and things of that nature and the things that they do, nurses and doctors and things of that. So, and I don't want to forget about the sanitation workers because, if they ain't picking up that trash, boy, some people get real mad. They be like, well, I know when mine don't come, I'm giving them a call. Be like, look, y'all didn't pick up the trash. What's going on? Y'all coming the next day? But they're
they can't handle that smell. Like, no, somebody come get this.
Well, I know one person that's real. One people that's doing real good is the people with the HVAC system, the heating and cooling. Because if your heat goes out and you got kids in the house, that's gonna be very miserable. Or your heat goes out. So those are jobs that, and I think we need to look at vocational schools too, because I think those are things that lacking is getting some of these kids in some of these vocational schools that they can go out and do those service jobs that are very lucrative. Because a plumber, plumber ain't coming out your house unless you're paying $85 to $100 just for him to come out or her to come out. Because you got some female plumbers now, female electricians, and all this other stuff. So we need to look at some of those trades as well, people in the community.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead on and it's late for me, and the people out here, I know that they'll watch it later on. But I really thank you for bringing me on, and I really enjoy it. And I'll see if I can get the founder of Clippers and Cops to come on your show and on your YouTube and talk with you about some of the things that he has as well as we all have done. And thank you, because you're a living legend too, because you're bringing the opportunity for people to meet people like us that's out here, that's doing the right thing, and that's making a difference in the community that sometimes people don't see.
I thank you. I didn't think that would come back on me like that. I'm a living legend too. I thank you. I appreciate that. Oh my gosh, I feel up now. You're making me blush.
Well, we all have a purpose. We all have a purpose, and how we share that purpose make all us unique.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You guys, that was a dope compliment. Oh. I really thank you. And my real ones, thank you. And I look forward to you. And hey, I would definitely be in contact saying, hey, don't forget about little old me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, you guys. So you can go ahead and hang up, or you want me to disconnect it?
It's whichever one you want to do. You can disconnect, hang up. You sent this to me, so I'm just sitting here on it and figuring it out. My grandson can figure this out far quicker than I can. So he's a tech guy.
You did a good job.
And he's on.
We had a successful show.
About to be 10, so, but thank you, appreciate it.
You did good. You did excellent. But we were definitely all right. Thank you, guys. So he's gonna go, Mr. Curry.
Bye bye, y'all. Take care and be safe out there.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, you guys. Oh my goodness, you guys, that was awesome. Woo, wow. History, Black History Month, definitely right there. And I was called a living legend too. I'm like cutting up right now. But you guys, that was awesome. So until next time, let me just tell you this right here. Keep safe, you guys. Please make sure you go through all of my videos. I have some great information in there. Oh my goodness, you guys. This is a great interview. Oh, thank you. Leave me alone. I heard you talking mess about me. But thank you. That was a great interview. Oh, Smiley Jones came through. Hello, Smiley Jones came through. Linda, she came through. Hello, Linda. Oh my goodness, you guys. Clyde. Oh, thank you for coming through, Clyde. Thank you. Wow. So look, you guys, until next time, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. Please hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified every time I am ready to come through and keep it real, darling. So I am your host with always the most. RealDence Nay. No. I had to come with something silly before I got out of here. But you guys, guess what? I'm good to go. Oh, I kissed my own eye. Oh, yes,